And for more on our top story, we're joined from London by the Guardian's foreign correspondent Jonathan Steele. And in Paris, we have John Laughlin, Director of Studies at the Institute for Democracy and Cooperation. Hello to you, Mr. Laughlin and Mr. Steele. First to you, Mr. Steele. So what's London's attitude towards the U.S. move?
Well, I think it is a change of policy from the Bush-Cheney era. But in a way, we still have to see the small print. He's not ruling out some kind of land-based missile defense systems altogether. He's delaying it from what Bush-Cheney had wanted. He's not having the radars immediately in the Czech Republic, and he's not having the interceptor missiles so quickly in Poland. But he's not abandoned the program altogether, and of course he still insists, as the Bush-Cheney people did, that it has nothing to do with Russia. It's all about Iran, and I think the Russians will probably need a bit of convincing to really believe that.
And now to you, Mr. Laughlin in Paris. So do you feel the U.S. is leaving Europe defenseless in the face of threats from rogue states?
Not at all. I agree very much with Jonathan Steele. I think the whole issue really has been largely bogus from the start. Bogus in the sense that nobody believes that this missile defense shield is directed against Iran. If it was directed against Iran, why would they be so determined to place the anti-missile system in Europe? Europe's a long way away. I think that in any case the threat from Iran is exaggerated. We had reports in the Wall Street Journal today that was the conclusion of the Pentagon as well. So no, I think the ultimate point in this whole story, it's partly geopolitical. Obviously Iran and the Middle East is very important, but it's largely to do, I'm afraid, with pork barrel politics. In other words, with the fact that the American political system relies very heavily on defense spending, and by that I mean that money is voted by the American state and paid to defense contractors. And the missile shield, the anti-missile shield, is almost a perfect example of how the defense industry milks the American state. It's a system which they've been talking about now for at least 30 years and which I think a lot of people believe would never work. It will suck in billions of dollars to no avail except for the purpose, as I say, of providing money to defence contractors. So I think that's the bottom line, really, in all of this.
And staying with you, Mr. Laughlin, we understand many Eastern European countries are involved. So where does this leave the Czech Republic and Poland?
Well, those countries don't face a threat from Russia at the moment. So they, of course, wanted it precisely because they believed that it was directed against Russia, while America insisted that it was directed against. Let's not forget as well that opinion in these countries is divided, particularly in the Czech Republic, but even in Poland. It's divided in the sense that a large percentage of the population in the Czech Republic was always hostile to the stationing of the anti-missile radars in their country, and so incidentally is the Czech president. The same is true of Poland, although the figures are slightly lower for Poland. So I think what we see is, in both cases, a political class in Poland and the Czech Republic, a pro-American, essentially neoconservative political class that has been left high and dry now that their friends in the White House are no longer in power.
And now finally to you, Mr. Steele. Let's get to some of the details of Obama's statement. So the American president actually said changes will be made to the defense system. So what could this entail?
Well, he said it'll be stronger, swifter and smarter. So he's trying to sell it to the American public as something better than what Bush-Cheney did, because he's obviously afraid that there would be people on the right, the kind that John Laughlin has talked about, who will say this is appeasement, this is giving in to the Russians, he's allowed Russian bullying to push him over, all this kind of stuff. So he has to pretend that this is a stronger move than what Bush was doing. But in fact, it is a change, I think. But it's still not clear exactly what the new systems will be. It'll be a bit more pushed into the future. And I think one of the main purposes is to try to bring the Russians on board against Iran. After all, by saying this is all about Iran and Iran is a threat and trying to say Russia can now join this broader collaboration on defense and security, he's trying to get the Russians on board against Iran in terms of sanctions as well. So I think it is a sort of way of delaying the real hard decisions about what the future missile defense will be, and trying in the meantime to sort of get the Russians on board on the more urgent thing, as the Americans see it, which is the Iranian nuclear weapon perhaps program and sanctions. And so I think he's giving in one hand something, but trying to take again on another hand.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was Jonathan Steele, foreign correspondent with Guardian, and John Laughlin, Director of Studies from the Institute for Democracy and Cooperation in Paris.